what are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing that small businesses are facing right now when it comes to building their brand, whether it's awareness or trust factor, like you've talked about? What do you hear the most about? Help me, Kevin. Help us with this.
Yeah, so small brands, we usually say, well, we need to be everywhere because that's where our large competition is. That's what's eating most of their lunch on the table.
Right.
I think they recognize now as advertising channels evolve technologically, specifically within the digital space, it's becoming more and more difficult for small brands to understand what it is and why it matters.
Okay.
So they're leveraging, marketing subject matter experts like you and I to help explain that and to really understand it. There is a strategy and an art to social media marketing.
Absolutely.
To do it right. And, you can create an ad and throw it out there and push some money behind it and let Jesus take the wheel, and hopefully it does something. Or you can have more strategy behind how you're targeting and what are the best messaging strategies to use.
Welcome to the Turbo Branding Show, where we help you ignite your growth by leveraging your brand to grow faster, easier, and more successfully. I'm your host, Sue Kirshner, and today I'm welcoming Kevin Berrier to the show. So let's jump in and turbocharge your brand. First, thank you so much for being here, Kevin. I'm really excited to talk to you about omnichannel marketing and AI strategies for small businesses.
Yeah, me too. I love to geek out about all things marketing, so I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, first, let me tell my listeners a little bit more about you, Kevin, and why you're the perfect guest to talk about all of this, especially since you're a host of the 5 Dubs podcast, where you showcase awesome brands and geek out on marketing. So here, let me tell people a little bit about you. So Kevin is an omnichannel marketing innovator and international keynote speaker who helps brands connect strategy, storytelling, and sales. And who doesn't want that, right? But as advertising director at MDDC Advertising Services, he's led campaigns that fuse traditional media with cutting-edge digital tools to drive measurable results. And Kevin's passion sits at the intersection of creativity and technology, using AI not as a buzzword, but as a practical mechanism for smarter audience insights, stronger ideas, and faster execution. And I can't wait to talk more about this with you. But through his educational workshops and the AI games competition, Kevin brings the future of marketing from ideas to reality. So, excellent bio, and I'm excited to talk with you today. But before we jump into omnichannel marketing and how to leverage AI, please tell me, what is the AI games competition?
Yeah, so the AI games, funny enough, kind of was born, or the idea or concept was born while watching Squid Games. Funny enough. So our advertising agency is out of a press association, the Maryland, Delaware, DC Press Association. And a portion of what our agency does on the association side is to work with advertising professionals on how to be better marketers. And our agency adopted AI very early in November of 2022. Feels like such a long time ago. I was sitting like at midnight, waiting. It was almost like I was waiting to get like Taylor Swift tickets, trying to get my seat into OpenAI's ChatGPT. I knew it was coming. I saw a lot of practical opportunity in how I could use AI in my agency, where it's a tool that I'm the hammer and it's the nail. So in doing that, we help train ad professionals on how to use AI. So I go around the United States and recently to Ottawa, so I can say I'm international now. But
cool.
I know, but to teach advertising sales professionals on how to use AI in what they do in their professional world. And I was going around and I was giving this webinar and it was getting a lot of great feedback. And I had an organization that brought me out to do kind of this phase 1, say like, hey, what's the second? Like, what's next? What else can you do? And it was like 10 at night when I got the email, and I was watching Squid Games, funny enough, when I got the email, and I had no idea. I honestly never really thought about it until I got that email, and I'm like, man, it would be awesome to be a front man, just like the guy in Squid Games. So I'm like, well, I'm going to do the AI games. And so the wheels and gears start spinning in my mind, and now this is all I'm thinking about. So, at 10:15 till about 2 in the morning, in using AI, I built out the full framework for the AI games. And the AI games is a workshop or a competition where advertising sales professionals can put their knowledge to the test. They'll have 30 minutes. They'll be in a team of 8 to 10 people.
Okay.
They'll have a real world brand who will be a mock client, and they have 30 minutes to put together a 5-minute presentation on why their product mix is the best product mix for that individual brand. And it involves, pre-discovery research for that brand. It involves audience or persona profiling to create that bridge between that prospect's brand to the product's brand.
Right.
Things like competitive analysis, actually using AI to help create content and spec ideas. And then they get up in front of the rest of the room and that team presents. And the winner gets not only bragging rights, but gets, and I don't have it with me, but a really cool trophy that everyone gets to take home. So within the sales world, when you want to try to teach a sales professional, you have to make it fun because time's few and far between.
Absolutely.
So, we did our first AI games in Denver and it got incredible reviews. And now I've done the AI games all over the United States and in Ottawa too. So it's a fun, interactive way to learn how to use AI, I think the right way, without abusing it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that you took the idea and drove it all the way through to execution and now it's grown. But are the teams, are they graded or evaluated on both how they used AI as well as the output? Or how are you looking to choose a winner, so to speak?
Yeah. So it's a 20-point system. So the scoring system or the scoring rubric that AI and I created based on 20 points. And it's not only how did they use AI, but how well did they integrate AI content into their presentation. I always stress that a presentation should not look like it was AI generated or even AI assisted.
Absolutely.
Though, you should always be transparent and communicate that you leverage AI as a tool to be most efficient. And some teams, they get kind of silly and goofy with it. Other teams are, very kind of high and tight, but their peers in the room actually will vote. Like there's live voting at the end on who the winning team is. So it's really fun at the end to see the live voting poll up on the screen as everyone's putting their votes in and team 1 took the lead from team 2. And it's a fun 20 seconds while everyone votes to determine who really won.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. That's cool. Yeah, and like you said, there's no better way to learn how to do something than to actually do it. So,
exactly.
I love that, you've provided that experience for people. So, okay, so now that we worked through that, and we'll get back to AI and how to properly use it in your opinion later, but let's start with, again, a little bit about your background. I'd love to learn more about your professional journey, what got you interested in both marketing, creative, as well as like embracing AI, the technology. So how did you get here? And then the second question I'll throw out for you is, what do you think is your personal superpower?
Okay, so a little bit on my backstory. So I've been in advertising and marketing since late August of 2001. It was right before 9/11, and I was in my early 20s. I wanted to get an office job. And I saw in the newspaper, funny enough, that they were hiring in the classified department. So at an entry level, so I started at the bottom, and I started at a time where newspapers were seeing lines out the door, literally lines out the door to place classified ads. And then, 9/11 happened. And in our industry, in the newspaper industry, that was an immediate shift. While there was a lot of unification, there was also a lot of fear. So businesses pulled back on their budget. It was almost a switch flipped. However, in the news media industry, we're scrappy, right? So we persevered, and I, grew through the classified advertising side to be, an outside rep and actually go out and work with businesses on campaigns beyond just placing a classified ad. And I was finding that interesting, and kind of all the while I'm watching Mad Men. Mad Men, as funny as it is, Mad Men, definitely a sign of the times with you can drink in the office and, men can be complete pigs, but in the idea of like Don Draper and how he presents to these real world brands. I found that so interesting from a branding perspective, because I think what they did a really good job at is emphasizing the importance of branding.
Right.
And all of the creative ways in which you can emphasize a message that aligns with the brand. I was like, it was almost like I was romanticizing the idea of just like how simply beautiful that could be.
Right.
So that really started getting my mind passionate about turning this from a job into a career. And so I did. And I grew through the ranks within the news media industry. I've helped launch digital wings of different news media industries to now I'm with the Maryland, Delaware, DC Press Association, who evangelizes and advocates for news media. And in doing that, we work with businesses and organizations around the United States in advertising campaigns, not only to buy media within our news media organizations, but also to be truly a multi-channel, or where we're able, an omni-channel marketing strategist for our brands.
For your brands. Okay. All right. So how important is local news still to small businesses? When the internet has changed all the different sales, journeys and customer journeys and things like that, and you can find all the information you need at your fingertips, and small local retailers, for example, are setting up online stores and now can sell, nationally, if not internationally, and things like that. What percentage of your clients are truly local and need a local media outlet, to reach their customers?
Yeah. So without standing on a soapbox, it's just taking off my press association hat, I truly believe that local media is important. And case in point, COVID-19.
Yeah.
So the COVID pandemic, I think, served in this instance as a mechanism to underscore the importance of local media.
Okay.
Prior, there were and still are, there's so many different channels that you can advertise on. The space is congested. And there's, looming trust within the local news media industry, right? I mean, the bigger you are, the less people trust you. And I think some of that is self-inflicted, and I think some of that is unjustified.
Right.
But COVID-19 happens, and now us marketers, we are struggling to try to figure out, well, how do we get message in front of consumers for our clients?
Right.
So in the true fashion of a marketer, we use and abuse channels. I mean, just brutally abuse channels like email marketing.
Yeah.
Email marketing, COVID-19, the COVID pandemic spiked unsubscribe rates because that was one of the primary metrics to reach out to consumers on behalf of your brands.
Right.
But people, as much as they love to hate media, which is just, I think, the nature of the world, they sure turn to their local media to understand what's really going on. Because I think what the COVID pandemic also underscored was how swampy other channels could be, like social media. Mm-hmm. At one point, there was a story going around on Facebook that talked about using HVAC filters as a mask mechanism. HVAC filters that probably have fiberglass in it.
Yes.
And people quickly realized, well, that's not true. You shouldn't use that. And they started seeing the swampiness within these different channels, and these channels saw declines in advertising revenue. They saw at times declines in viewership or daily active users. And local media, I think, made a strategic and necessary moral step by and large to at least make, COVID related stories outside of a paywall. Okay. And that offered for local businesses that were surely struggling and really trying to find a way on how to survive within this indefinite time if they can't have people in their brick and mortars.
Yep.
Local media served as that conduit to reach these audiences within communities to great fanfare. I use local media heavily during the COVID pandemic to advertise our local brands within my community or to help consult. I help consult pro bono for businesses within my community on what they could do to help strengthen their marketing during that time.
Right.
Now we're past the pandemic, at least by and large, we're past the pandemic, and, the distrust is back.
Right.
But we're seeing circulations hold steady, and we're seeing digital traffic increase. I think people are closet lovers of local media, but will sure come out and criticize if they don't agree with something. But that means they're passionate about their community.
Absolutely.
And eyeballs are eyeballs. So
right.
Probably a very long-winded answer on that, but
I appreciate that. Important. I appreciate the story and the context for it. But, and you're in a unique position because, like you said, you're out talking to small businesses and brands and helping them grow and coming up with strategies and all that. What are some of the biggest challenges you're seeing that small businesses are facing right now when it comes to building their brand, whether it's awareness or trust factor, like you've talked about. What do you hear the most about? Help me, Kevin. Help us with this.
Yeah, so small brands will usually say, well, we need to be everywhere because that's where our large competition is. Jim's Hardware needs to be everywhere the Home Depot and Lowe's is because that's what's eating most of their lunch on the table.
Right.
And it's a bandwidth issue. It's a resource issue. Home Depot and Lowe's have probably wings of marketing professionals that
Yes.
are ready at the helm. And,
Yes.
Jim, business owner, is the owner of the company. He's the marketing expert. He's the probably many times the maintenance or janitorial staff.
Correct.
So they recognize that. I think they recognize now as advertising channels evolve technologically, specifically within the digital space, it's becoming more and more difficult for small brands to understand what it is and why it matters.
Okay.
So they're leveraging, marketing subject matter experts like you and I to
Hmm.
help explain that and to really understand it. There is a strategy and an art to social media marketing to do it
Absolutely.
right. And,
Yes.
you can create an ad and throw it out there and push some money behind it and let Jesus take the wheel and hopefully it does something, or you can have more strategy behind how you're targeting and what are the best messaging strategies to use.
Right.
I'm seeing that small local businesses are struggling to find what really works within
Okay.
such a congested space with
Yeah.
so much competition.
Right.
So that's really what I'm seeing. Yeah.
Right, right. So and I've seen that as well. It's, everyone's like, "Oh, I need more leads. I need more leads. I need more leads." I hear that constantly. It's like, "No, you may need more leads, but what you really need to do is take a giant step back." And as to what you're saying is, how are you different? How do we position you so that you do stand out from the competition and the larger companies that you might be competing with? And it may be that how you're different and how you stand out is hyper focusing on maybe a local community as your customer base or a smaller niche type customer and things like that. So, and what's frustrating I see as well for my clients is this whole idea of, oh my gosh, I have to be everywhere. Right. So not only do I have to help them rein in on the not every client is your client or every, person out there is your client, but then it's also not every channel needs to be where you're spending your money because then you just end up diluting. You've got a little bit here in social, I got a little bit here in email and things like that, and it doesn't work. So it's really trying to understand who is your target, where are they, and how do you reach them? And then how do you make sure that your message is super hyper relevant to them? And I think local media is a tremendous way to help with those kinds of things because they are different and they stand out. And there still is, despite some distrust with, media and some advertising mediums that are out there, when it comes to local, a lot of people I know, you still look for, well, like here in the Chicago area, where's the Daily Herald? What does the Daily Herald say about that company or this, restaurant or that firm? Or, oh, look, this company was mentioned in the local news. That's great. I'm excited. I want to help someone in my local community and I'm going to go shop there, kind of a thing. So I think it does help to
Yeah,
have.
and I think, with the local media side, I think the local media side truly represents the free press, right? Because when there are less influences within a marketplace that a media company has to navigate, the freer they are, right? To hold the powerful accountable, which breeds trust within communities. I think too, not only, and I think this is important to stress, is with small businesses when they say, I need more leads, I need more leads, I need more leads. I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes you have to take a step back.
Yeah.
And also I think it's the earnest of us as marketers to our brands that we work with to set realistic expectations.
Yes.
I'm sure you've probably been solicited by vendor upon vendor saying, I will get you top spot on Google
Yep.
organically within
Right.
20 days. And it's like, no, you're not. No,
No,
you're
you're not.
not. If you
Absolutely
read,
not.
if you read enough fine print, you're going to find that's not true. But a business owner, when they're in desperation mode, you have a business owner that says, I need leads, I need leads, I need leads, that to me is a sign of
There's an
desperation.
issue. Right. Yeah.
There's an issue. Yeah. So, in that kind of state of mind, that's where those bait and switch tactics really shine
Yeah.
and can create issues. So, setting realistic expectations on if you want the foundation of your long-term marketing plan to be strong and sound and can, keep the water out of the basement, it takes time. That
Yeah.
will take time, especially if it's an SEO play.
Oh,
SEO,
yeah.
SEO businesses, they think it's voodoo
Right.
because it's very hard to track attribution in the short term,
Right.
but that takes time. I won't take an SEO campaign for anything less than 6 months. And the first place I'm going to start is a Google
Right.
business page, So I think setting realistic metrics and expectations beyond people walking through the door, though there are a lot of marketing channels that I can attribute foot traffic, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
understanding that that's not the ultimate metric long term, I think it's so important. And it's the hardest conversation to have with business owners because that's what they truly want. That is, the Jordan Belfords of the world would say, done. I will solve that problem. But the reality is there is no easy solution other
No.
than building a foundation sound and successfully and properly.
Exactly. And it takes time and it's longer term. And the same thing is I've had clients like, again, with that, I need leads, I need leads, I need something tomorrow. And it's like, well, if you need something by tomorrow, then you're back to cold calling. I'm sorry. But it's like, it's a sales issue now, not a marketing issue, because marketing takes time in order to build that relationship to get a client to know, trust, and like you in order to want to spend money with you. But
Exactly.
since we're talking about different mediums and all that, can you, for all of our listeners, can you explain what is omni-channel marketing and how is that effective for a small business owner to look at as a strategy to help them with everything we've talked about, building their brand and creating a foundation for success?
Yeah. So omni-channel marketing for me, and almost by definition, it hovers around being seamless and consistent in every facet of your marketing, whether it be a print ad in, your local paper or magazine down to, the marketing that you have in your brick and mortar
Hmm.
at your front desk, for example. And I'm visualizing a client that I work with that I think does such a great job. If it's okay, I'd like to give him a little shout out.
Absolutely. Love shout outs.
Awesome. So it's Players Fitness and Performance. I've worked with Players Fitness and Performance for close to 10 years now.
Okay.
And their health and fitness facility that in the very beginning focused on youth athletic performance. That was
Hmm.
their client were youth athletes. And during COVID, they were able to actually open up an adult training side. But their user experience from the beginning to end has always been a priority to that
Yeah.
client. It's
Yeah.
as much of a priority to that client as the true North Star that Andrew Simpson, the founder of PFP, marches down and has never veered from. He's one. I've talked to many businesses that they tell such a compelling story in 30 days. Their narrative is very different for a myriad
Okay.
of reasons. Andrew's never veered from his true
Favored.
north on what his why is.
Excellent.
And in doing that, his user experience from the marketing he puts out to the environment that he created within his organization, it feels like PFP.
Okay.
He's created this sense of community and sense of feeling of like, if you can, if a brand can make you feel something, you've won. You
Yes,
have successfully
absolutely.
created a brand. And PFP, I will be going there in about an hour.
Okay.
And PFP, I when I go in, you get this different sense of feeling of like, no matter how bad your day's been, you can come in, get a great workout. You're always going to be greeted at the front.
Yeah.
They're always holding initiatives with the community, Toys for Tots, things like that. And he's been able to grow that way through selflessness into a fourth location opening up here soon. So I think omni-channel marketing is considering how you address your marketing outside of the digital space or the print space
Right.
or, these traditional outbound marketing channels. It's also including, how are you marketing to your existing clientele
Yeah.
while creating a community and giving your best product for free to build loyalty and trust. I think PFP for me has done just such a brilliant job at doing that. In
Okay.
fact, during COVID, when here in Maryland, when the governor closed businesses down,
Yeah.
they quickly pivoted to virtual training.
Oh,
And they also recognize that a lot of the parents of these athletes are losing their jobs or being laid off because of such a tough time. So they offered a pay what you can model. And in doing that, parents are now home with their kids who are also home watching them train virtually, and they start training with their kids
Yeah.
just to train. And now during that time, through selflessness, through, you know what, if you can't pay, we're still going to train you because that's who Andrew and his team are. They were able to, during COVID, triple their footprint, knowing that they now have completely new client stream that he didn't intend to have. His intention was to help his clients get through a tough time.
Yeah.
And in doing that, he opened up a new stream. And the greedy marketer in me says, you know, Andrew, you just opened up a brand new revenue stream for yourself.
Right.
And he said, he's like, well, we're not going to abandon the pay we can model until we're back on safe ground.
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
Yeah.
And I think that's omni-channel marketing in, I think, one of the purest senses of recognizing that success can be a byproduct of selflessness.
Yes.
And I know that's very esoteric and kind of, you know, romanticizing it, but I saw it with my own eyes. It was incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah. No, I love that story for a couple different reasons. One is because as a small business owner, I love that you talked about the fact that he knows his why and he doesn't deviate from that at all, because that is a strong brand and that is the true north that he obviously can get all of his employees to rally around and make sure that all decisions are made to strengthen the brand as opposed to dilute it. The second is I love the story part where, you know, he was able to pivot in COVID because he knew his customers so well, right? And that's something that a lot of companies, they don't spend enough time getting to know their customers, their wants, their fears, their aspirations, their their needs, all those kinds of things. So he understood what would make a difference for his customers. And then the third part too is, or another part of that is, like you were talking about, is a lot of people are all about the leads, new customers. But really, 60 to 70% of your business needs to come from your existing customers and building that loyalty and hanging on to those relationships and, you know, having the trust built so that they continue to do work with you. And he obviously has done that by the way that he cared. And, you know, the social responsibility and the pay as you can model is he was able to reach out and honor that. But I love when you talk about omnichannel marketing, what I get excited about is being the brand strategy person who kind of sits over the top of a lot of the marketing. And, you know, I like to say, you know, work with me before you spend money on marketing. But I like what you touched on, and where I get to play is I get to step out of the marketing activity and look at the experience, right? Because the brand is the culmination of the messaging and the experience. And I always love talking to the CEO or the owner of a company and leaders to say, all right, well, your messaging is pretty good, but your experience isn't backing it up. And that's where the brand is falling apart. Is, you know, you're not walking the talk and you're saying you do this, but then when I interview your customers, they say, no, they don't. They don't do that. We like them for this, but they're not doing what they said they were doing. And so I think the experience is something that small business owners don't stop and take a look at and analyze and say, that's where the magic happens. That's where you strengthen the brand. It's where you create loyalty, and it's where you respond to your customers in a way that's truly unique.
Yeah, you know, I think you're absolutely right. And what's interesting in that is I think brands, I think owners or, you know, decision makers within a brand, especially on the marketing side, they're their most loyal advocate or evangelist. And I think it's a matter of perception versus reality. And I think you're exactly right. I bet you most brands that say they do one thing, but their client base says another, I bet you those brands have no idea. And I don't think it's because they're disinterested or there's an intentional disconnect. I think they're so busy doing so many things.
Yes.
And really always understanding. I think, again, going back to PFP, I think one thing that Andrew has done well is as he's expanding, you know, he went from, I've watched him go from a space that's about as big as my very small office in here to like an 18,000 foot space. And then, you know, building a second PFP, then a third, now a fourth. And, you know, that can turn the eye and his attention from user experience to growth.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a special entrepreneur to really understand that those have to go hand in hand and are so important. So I think, Yeah, I think small business owners really understanding their client base fully beyond, you know, moms of, teenage children tend to be the decision maker within my brand versus the father or whatever the case
Right.
may be through the
Right.
the typical traditional targeting metrics, really understand like what the client's why is. It's
Right.
so beautifully simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think it's something that brands don't do enough of.
They don't. I agree with you. And we could have a whole nother episode about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I want to pick your brain about AI now because you have a lot of experience and unique background in that. And so I'm going to ask you, like, what have you seen? How can small businesses, as they grow and they're marketing and they're building their brand, how are you seeing companies using AI to really effectively either speed up their growth or be more effective in their marketing or even being able to understand their customer base better? What have you seen? Whether it's in the games or whether it's the clients you work with.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what I've seen and I'll tell you what I think should happen.
Okay, perfect.
Unfortunately, what I'm seeing is, small businesses, when they hear about the power of AI, they will use it where they're the nail and it's the hammer.
Okay.
And I think they get caught in that. I think they're using it to save time. And in
Yep.
doing that, it cuts very important corners that shouldn't be cut. What I think needs to be done is to use AI as a brainstorming tool. Early on, I adopted in our agency AI because, it was an agency of one. It was me. And we're still, nimble and adaptable. But what we were able to see is, AI could be used to help things avoid things from falling through the cracks, to get a better understanding of, you know, consumer archetypes that would be
Yeah.
most interested in us and most interested in our clients' brands. We were building a proposal for a client who had a lot of different products that they wanted to sell, and each product had different audiences. And when I asked, tell me about each audience, who are these golden ticket clients? They really didn't know,
Hmm.
which was surprising it was surprising. So I was able to I built out a GPT that's its sole purpose in existing is to create persona profiles
Okay.
by taking information and data that the client was able to provide, including their product pages on their website. So
Yeah.
my model could understand the product, and then tying it into Consensus. Consensus is a fantastic search engine that in this case is a data center or a data source that's applicable to this client's industry.
Okay.
And it was able to start building out persona profiles. And I was able to build out, for I think it was about a dozen different products, persona profiles that included not only the typical demographic and geographic info, but also like goals and motivations and pain points and struggles. Where are they within
Right.
the digital world, right? Where do they go that their eyeballs will be seen?
Yeah.
And I was able to do that in a few hours. Whereas, I was curious. I'm like, man, this is a lot of value. And I was able to get this done really quick. And I don't know, I may be completely out in left field on this, but I wonder how much it would cost. And I found there are New York-based research firms that are charging $50,000 and it takes 3 months to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was able to do it in an afternoon as a value add.
Yeah.
And, when I provided it to the client, I said, look, and I think it's important to always emphasize that there needs to be transparency in AI use. I
Yes.
let my clients know I use AI. They like that I use AI and that I know how to use AI.
Yep.
They find it as a superpower, right? There's my
There's your
superpower. I
superpower.
know how to use AI in the way I think works best. But when they gut check me on, am I in the right ballpark? This is perfect. This is exactly what we were looking for. A business can do that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much. It takes, train the model on what your product is, and then train the model on who you think your target customer is.
Yeah.
And then gut check that and use the data you have, right? I mean, if you have an email list that gives you an idea of what zip codes exist within your email list, now you have geographic targeting of a higher propensity.
Yes.
You could,
Where you can leverage local marketing then, right?
where you
Local
can
media.
leverage local marketing or, tie in a targeted strategy,
Right.
within a digital space. I think small businesses are using AI and sacrificing the human element. And I think that's dangerous. I think for the future of AI and what AI could be, but also just dangerous for that business. So use AI as an assistant. And I always, I'm probably a broken record by now on this, but like use it where you're the hammer and it's the nail.
Yeah.
It should not make decisions for you. It should provide you recommendations for you to decide.
Right.
What road you're going to go down when you're at a crossroads or need to pivot, or how to optimize your strategy. It should not just create your social campaign for you,
right?
Because it needs a lot of information. And last thing I think small businesses are really failing at when using AI is not training their AI model on who they are as a business as a whole.
Yes. That's where the branding piece comes in big time.
100%. And understanding what your branding archetype is and your mission statement and vision statement. And I use ChatGPT. I use a lot of different AI models. ChatGPT is my everyday go-to. Okay. I use it professionally and personally. And ChatGPT has the ability within a company workspace to train the model on who you are as a company.
Right.
And using these little mechanisms within your AI model that you may not even know exist to create a smarter AI model, because AI, when you're looking at it, it's a toddler right now. It's a fast growing toddler, and it has about an 1100 IQ, but it still gets things wrong, and it gets things wrong all the time. And it's very convincing.
Yes.
And, it was going around different circles. It was like, what's the quickest time that someone has traveled the English Channel on foot? And it came up with this very compelling, it's like some German guy and did it in like X amount of hours and and all this stuff. And like, you can't, right? It's, the English Channel's body of water. So, so it hallucinated. I mean, for those that don't know, when AI gets it wrong and convincingly provides you an output that is not right, that's a hallucination.
Yeah.
So, but it was very convincing. Yeah. I mean, for someone that wouldn't know any better,
right? Yeah.
It was great. I had to stop for a second and research. I'm like, did that really happen? And how did he do it?
Right.
The guy, there was no person ever that did that. So I think really understanding, like, you should always look at AI through a skeptical lens and recognize that if you just let it do things for you blindly without the human element, it will, in many situations, lead you down potentially a wrong path.
A wrong path. Absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree. am not an AI guru, but I have been really doubling down on educating myself and trying to use it and build these assists and, things like that in Claude and GPT and things like that. And it's interesting because you're right. I love what you're saying about, it's an assistant. AI should be an assistant. I heard it termed somewhere, and I can't remember who said it, but it's like AI is like an intern. Meaning they are so eager to help you and to answer your question and to prove that they know what they're talking about and all this. But again, they don't know your business as well as you do. And you do have to do that gut check and take a step back and say, okay, if it's not accurate and you need to be making sure that what AI came back or your intern came back with has to be accurate, is you need to kind of say, all right, did I give enough information to AI in order to get this right? And then even if you did give enough information, you still are going to know things that the machine can't know, right? That the algorithm absolutely cannot pull for you. So you do have to gut check these things. So I've done that as well. In my last client, I created target market personas for them based on information they gave me and research externally and all this kind of stuff. But when I came back to them and say, okay, this is what AI gave us, but I want you to read all of this and then tell me which one of your VIP customers matches this profile exactly. And none of them did. So that's where you have to go back and you have to say, all right, what did we miss? And then how do we tweak the skeletal outline basically that AI created, but let's make it more true. Let's make it more accurate. I'm going to pull the information out of you, sales team and founder of the company, to flesh this out and to make it true. So, but it's great for brainstorming. I did another thing where I was helping an accounting firm try and come up with ideas for how to attract more talent, because it's very hard to find accountants these days to help your company grow. And so I went into 3 different AI models and basically had said, can you give me concrete examples of an agency that ran a campaign to attract more talent and it worked effectively for them? And it came back with all this information, and the ideas were fabulous. From a creative point of view, I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. But I'm like, all right. But before I go and run with this and present it to the client, and I was very transparent about some of the ideas, were generated with AI. But as I went through the list of companies that it gave me as examples for these campaigns, over half of them were not real companies.
Yeah.
So you do have to do that gut check and do the test to make sure that the information that you're getting out of AI is good. But again, like an intern, it's very eager to please you. You just have to then take that as the first step, first pass, and how do we build on it? And it does still save you time, and it can provide ideas that you never would have thought of, but you still know your business better than anybody else. So
yeah, it's interesting to think about it. I've never thought about it as an intern, and really, so what you do is you have to think about if you're bringing an intern in, what's the quality of intern that's onboarded versus not onboarded. Right. So you need to onboard your intern. And then, you're mentioning like, if it does get it wrong and now you have this human element to optimize, you have to train your model on here's what's wrong. Here's where you got it wrong. And here's what's correct. And here's what we ultimately came up with. So that it understands that as you continue to use that model going forward for the specific client, maybe you created a project within your model, that your project is updated and understood. It is, you should truly treat it like an employee that if you think a live employee, a live assistant would need specific information to do their job best, your AI model is going to need the same.
Too. Right. Yeah. Excellent. Wonderful. All right. Well, this has been absolutely fabulous. Kevin, thank you so much for spending time with me today and sharing how many clients you've worked with and help them with, defining omnichannel marketing and how they should be leveraging that, as well as leveraging AI to tell their story in a very effective way. But I just wanted to say, if people want to learn more about you, about your podcast, about how they can use AI more effectively, how can they learn more about you or connect with you?
Yeah, best place is LinkedIn. Get me on LinkedIn, Kevin Berrier. You'll see my AI headshot. That makes me look very stoic. I love my headshot. But you can follow our social channels at MDDC Advertising Services. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Yeah, and reach out to me. I always, when I do the AI games, I let everyone know, like, even though I'm leaving, I'm not gone. Get me on LinkedIn. And I love to geek out with businesses and organizations on, if they have a question on like, I want to achieve X, here's my obstacle. How could I use AI potentially as a solution? I will always respond back because I think it takes a village. So always reach out to me or kberrier at mddcpress.com.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And we will include all of those links, everything that you've talked about and your social links and everything will be in the show notes for this. So again, thank you so much for joining me, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Turbo Branding Show. I hope you've been inspired to ignite your growth by leveraging your brand. And if you enjoyed it, I'd love if you could help me build a strong brand following for this show. So please share the episode and be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. But thank you and stay tuned for our next episode.